The silence in the courtroom was profound, a palpable stillness that amplified every rustle of paper and every breath. Across the polished mahogany table sat my husband Raymond, his face etched with that familiar, smug expression I had come to despise over our 3 and 7 decades of marriage. Beside him, his attorney, a woman impeccably dressed in a sharp suit, leaned in, murmuring into his ear. He would respond with a dismissive chuckle, as if they were sharing pleasantries at a social gathering, rather than orchestrating a legal maneuver to strip me of everything I possessed. Presiding over the proceedings was Judge Morrison, a woman of imposing presence, her silver-streaked hair pulled back severely into a bun, her gaze sharp behind her spectacles as she surveyed the documents before her. "Mr. Caldwell?" Her voice, resonant and commanding, sliced through the hushed tension. "You appear remarkably assured regarding the stipulations of your prenuptial agreement." Raymond, with a theatrical flourish, leaned back, adjusting his silk tie. "Indeed, Your Honour, it is quite straightforward. My wife will retain her teaching pension, while I will keep all marital assets, including the property situated at 1247 Riverside Road, which she inherited from her father." It was then that my own counsel, Ms. Patricia Green, rose to her feet. She was a woman of faith, a sister from my own church community who had witnessed the unfolding of this entire distressing affair. A knowing glint in her eyes sent a tremor of anticipation through me. "Your Honour, if I may be permitted to submit supplementary documentation pertaining to that property and Mrs. Caldwell's inheritance." Raymond's confident smirk faltered, a fleeting flicker of something akin to alarm crossing his features. It was gone in an instant, but I had seen it. Judge Morrison inclined her head. "Proceed." Patricia produced a manila folder, its considerable thickness suggesting the heft of a telephone directory. "Your Honour, we have uncovered evidence that Mr. Caldwell has deliberately withheld critical information regarding the true valuation of the assets in question. The parcel of land at 1247 Riverside Road is not merely undeveloped acreage, as stipulated in the prenup. According to geological surveys conducted 6 months prior to Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell's union, Mr. Caldwell's attorney objected. "Objection! This is—" "Sit down, counsellor," Judge Morrison interjected firmly. "I wish to hear this." Patricia's voice remained unwavering and strong. "The land, Your Honour, is situated atop a significant natural gas deposit, conservatively valued at $32 million. Furthermore, Mrs. Caldwell's late father, Ernest Robinson, established a trust fund amounting to $5 million for his daughter, to be accessible in the event of divorce or widowhood. Mr. Caldwell was fully aware of both these assets and intentionally structured the prenup to—" The remainder of her words were lost amidst a barrage of objections from Raymond's attorney, Raymond himself leaping to his feet, and the sharp, definitive crack of Judge Morrison's gavel. Yet, what remained etched in my memory with crystalline clarity was the expression on Raymond's face, pure, unadulterated shock, as if he had just been informed his winning lottery ticket was, in fact, worthless. Judge Morrison's voice boomed across the courtroom. "We will take a 30-minute recess while I review these documents. Mr. Caldwell, I suggest you and your attorney utilize this time judiciously. Before we continue, please leave a comment if you have ever experienced something similar. We would love to hear your story and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Allow me to transport you back to the genesis of all this, for it is crucial that you comprehend a fundamental truth about me. My name is Dorothy Caldwell. Though I was born Dorothy Jean Robinson 72 years ago in a modest dwelling on the south side of town. My father, Ernest Robinson, was a mechanic, a man whose life was defined by the grease on his hands. He dedicated himself to fixing cars, mending whatever broke, and meticulously saving every penny to ensure my access to education. I was the very first person in my family to attend college, earning my teaching degree from the State University in 1975. I returned to my hometown and commenced my career as an English instructor at Lincoln High School. It was there, over the subsequent 40 years, that I dedicated myself to nurturing young minds, instilling in them a love for reading, empowering their self-expression, and encouraging them to envision futures far grander than their present circumstances might suggest. I encountered Raymond Caldwell at a community fundraising event in 1987. At 44 years of age, I had never been married and, to be perfectly candid, had resigned myself to a solitary existence. But Raymond was different, or so I believed. He was an investment banker, possessing an air of sophistication and impeccable style. When his gaze met mine across that crowded room at the Cultural Centre, I felt a stirring I hadn't experienced in years. He courted me with an intensity that made me feel as though I were the sole woman in existence, showering my classroom with flowers, escorting me to elegant downtown restaurants where we were occasionally the only African American couple present, and he seemed entirely unperturbed by it. He would compliment my beauty and intellect, expressing profound admiration for my unwavering commitment to teaching. 6 months into our courtship, he proposed. Now, I must be entirely transparent with you. There were subtle indicators from the outset, minor observations, such as his propensity to correct my grammar, despite my having earned a degree in English, or his suggestions that I adopt a more professional wardrobe, even on weekends when I opted for my comfortable teaching attire. He would subtly mention how his colleagues' wives were not employed, as if that were an aspiration I ought to embrace. However, I was 45 years old, and it was the first time I had ever truly experienced love. Consequently, I dismissed those nascent red flags. I rationalized his behavior, convincing myself he was merely invested in helping me achieve my highest potential. My father had passed away 2 years prior to my meeting Raymond. He succumbed to a heart attack at the age of 68, collapsing in his garage while working on Mrs. Henderson's Buick. His death shattered me into countless pieces. Yet, my father bequeathed me 2 invaluable possessions: his house, which I subsequently sold to purchase my own modest residence, and the parcel of land situated on Riverside Road. That land had been a part of our family legacy for generations. My father's grandfather had acquired it following the First World War, a time when African Americans were still endeavoring to secure property ownership against formidable odds. It was a modest 10 acres of scrub brush and pine trees, unremarkable in appearance. My father had always expressed an intention to construct something on it one day, but he never realized that vision. He simply held on to it, diligently paying the annual taxes, and would often tell me, "Baby girl, this land is your inheritance, your great-granddaddy's legacy. Never let anyone take it from you." When Raymond and I became engaged, he insisted upon a prenuptial agreement. "It's simply sound business practice, Dorothy," he explained, his hand clasped over mine across the table at a prestigious downtown steakhouse. "I have assets to safeguard, and you have your teacher's pension. This arrangement ensures clarity." I harbored reservations, but his attorney provided a simplified explanation. In the event of a divorce, I would retain my pension. He would keep his investment portfolios and his financial holdings, and any jointly acquired property would be divided according to its ownership at the commencement of our marriage. The Riverside Road land was designated as undeveloped property, with an estimated valuation of approximately $15,000 based on county assessments. Even at that time, that figure struck me as remarkably low. However, what did I truly know about property valuations? I was a high school English teacher, not a real estate expert. Raymond's lawyer assured me the appraisal was accurate, and Raymond, with a kiss to my forehead, reassured me, "Don't trouble yourself with these legal intricacies, sweetheart. Your sole focus should be on being my beautiful wife." And so I signed. The initial years of our marriage were largely tranquil. Raymond dedicated long hours to his firm in the city, while I continued my teaching career. We purchased a beautiful residence in Hampton Estates, a highly desirable African American neighborhood. We attended services every Sunday at New Hope Baptist Church, where I lent my voice to the choir, and Raymond served on the finance committee. We hosted Thanksgiving dinners, attended family reunions, and from an external perspective, we presented the image of an ideal couple. However, subtly, almost imperceptibly, a shift began to occur. Raymond started making disparaging remarks about my profession. "Still dealing with those children?" he would inquire upon my return home, weary from my day. "When do you plan to retire and allow me to provide for you?" "I cherish teaching," I would gently remind him. "These students require my guidance." He would sigh as though I were being deliberately uncooperative. "Dorothy, you are married to a successful man now. There is no necessity for you to work. My colleagues' wives are engaged in philanthropic endeavors, country club activities, and pursuits of genuine substance, not the constant supervision of teenagers who scarcely appreciate your efforts." The term babysitting reduced my 40 years of shaping young minds to the mere act of watching children. Then came the remarks concerning my father. Raymond never voiced direct criticism when my father was alive, but after our marriage, subtle barbs began to emerge. "Your father's humble origins," he would remark during dinner parties. "Dorothy hails from modest stock, but she has transcended it all." Transcended as if my father, who instilled in me the profound value of diligence and integrity, were a source of shame. The breaking point arrived 3 months prior, on a Tuesday evening in July. I had returned home early from a summer school session, and Raymond was in his home office, the door slightly ajar. I was about to call out to him when I overheard his conversation. No, she has absolutely no inkling," he was saying, and a peculiar intonation in his voice froze me in the hallway. "The prenup is ironclad. When I divorce her, she will receive nothing beyond her meager teacher's pension." A chill coursed through my veins. "Yes, I am aware that I have been married to her for 37 years, Raymond continued, and I could discern the clinking of ice in his whiskey glass. "But the long-term strategy has paid dividends. That property she inherited will finally yield its anticipated worth. The natural gas company confirmed the deposit's magnitude last month. $32 million, Marcus. $32 million, and it will all be mine." I instinctively reached for the wall to steady myself. "How did I manage it?" Raymond chuckled. "Effortlessly. I instructed my attorney to deliberately undervalue the property in the prenup, listed it at $15,000 when I possessed irrefutable knowledge of what lay beneath that ground. Her father was unaware as well. The poor, simple man simply held on to that land, believing it to be some sort of ancestral legacy." Tears welled in my eyes, but I remained silent, listening intently. "The mortgage on our residence. I utilized her land as collateral without her knowledge, forged her signature on the requisite documents. She placed her complete trust in me. A foolish woman, she never questioned anything, simply continued with her little classes and her singing in that choir." The contempt permeating his voice was like a corrosive acid. "The most astute investment I ever made was marrying Dorothy Robinson. I spent 37 years playing the role of the devoted husband, and now I am poised to reap the rewards. The prenup explicitly states that any property she brought into the marriage remains her separate possession. However, what she remains ignorant of is that I have been remitting the property taxes from our joint account for years. My legal counsel advises that this grants me a legitimate claim to at least half of its value. When you factor in the collateral situation, the land is unequivocally mine." He paused, presumably listening to the response of the person on the other end of the line. "Divorce her next month. The dissolution papers have already been drafted. She will weep, she will be utterly devastated, but ultimately she will sign. She invariably complies with directives, and then my charade as a married man will conclude. I have no recollection of walking to our bedroom. I cannot recall packing a suitcase, yet I must have, because the next distinct memory is of sitting in my car in the church parking lot at 9 o'clock in the evening, telephoning my friend Loretta and weeping so uncontrollably that breathing became a struggle. Loretta Washington had been my closest confidant since our college days. She and her husband Thomas resided just 2 streets away, and she had harbored suspicions about Raymond from the very inception of our relationship. "Something about that man doesn't sit right with me," she had voiced years ago. I had defended him then. Now, however, there was no defense. "Dorothy, darling, where are you?" Loretta's voice was thick with concern. "New Hope parking lot," I managed to articulate between sobs. "Loretta, I heard him. I heard every single word." "Stay precisely where you are. I'm on my way to collect you." 15 minutes later, Loretta's Lexus pulled into the lot. She entered my vehicle, took one look at my distraught countenance, and enveloped me in an embrace as I wept on her shoulder. "Tell me everything," she implored, and so I did. Every word Raymond had uttered, every cruelly calculated detail of his scheme, every year of manipulation I had been too oblivious to perceive. When I concluded, Loretta remained silent for a protracted moment. Then she declared, "Dorothy Jean Robinson Caldwell, you listen to me. Your father did not raise a fool, nor did he raise a victim. That man in your home is about to discover the woman he married. But the prenup? Forget the prenup," Loretta stated with resolute conviction. "My niece Patricia is a formidable divorce attorney, one of the preeminent legal minds in this state. We are contacting her first thing tomorrow morning, and we will ensure Raymond Caldwell is buried so deeply he will require a map to find daylight." "I cannot afford an attorney of that caliber," I countered. "My savings would scarcely suffice." "Patricia attends our church?" Loretta interrupted, her tone laced with reassurance. "She will assist. And, my dear, if your sorry excuse for a husband has been meticulously planning this for 37 years, then we have ample time to formulate our own counter-strategy." That night I remained at Loretta's residence. I made no attempt to contact Raymond, no text message, no call, doing nothing more than sitting in her guest room, striving to process the profound realization that my entire marriage had been an elaborate fabrication. The man I had loved, the man in whom I had placed absolute trust, had married me solely for a parcel of land he intended to pilfer. The following morning, Loretta drove me to Patricia Green's offices in the heart of the city. Patricia, a sharp and capable woman in her early 40s, sported a perfectly executed twist-out hairstyle and exuded an aura of quiet confidence that immediately put me at ease. "Mrs. Caldwell," she greeted me, extending her hand. "Aunt Loretta has apprised me of the situation. I will be candid with you. Your husband's actions are not merely unethical, they are illegal. However, the prenup was procured through fraudulent means." Patricia stated unequivocally, "If he deliberately misrepresented the value of your assets and forged your signature on mortgage documentation, then that prenup holds no more value than the paper it is printed on. Nevertheless, I must conduct a thorough investigation first. It is imperative that you do not alert him to your awareness of these matters." "How am I expected to return home and feign normalcy?" I inquired. "Could you perhaps stay with Aunt Loretta for a few days? Patricia suggested. Inform him that you require some personal space due to a family emergency, something vague. I nodded in agreement. I can manage that. Excellent. Grant me 1 week. 1 week to thoroughly examine your father's estate, the property records, and your husband's financial dealings. Do not sign anything. Do not consent to any proposals. And for heaven's sake, do not let him discover that you are aware of his deception. I dispatched a text message to Raymond, informing him that I would be staying with Loretta to assist her with a family emergency. His reply was brief. Okay, don't rush back. That was all. No inquiry about my well-being, no offer of assistance. It was as if I were an inconvenient house guest seeking permission to linger. That week felt like an eternity. I went through the motions at summer school, instructing my remedial English class while my mind churned relentlessly. At night, I lay awake in Loretta's guest room, replaying every moment of my marriage, now acutely aware of the manipulation I had previously overlooked. The dinner parties where Raymond would interject to correct my statements. The manner in which he unilaterally made financial decisions without my consultation. How he would dismiss my concerns as overly emotional whenever I dared to question anything. The subtle, insidious isolation from my own family, with constant excuses fabricated to preclude attendance at Robinson family reunions. On the 6th day, Patricia telephoned. Mrs. Caldwell, could you please come to my office today? A subtle shift in her tone sent a jolt of anticipation through me. Is it bad news? No, Patricia responded, and I could detect the distinct hint of a smile in her voice. It is exceptionally good news, but we must discuss it in person. An hour later, I found myself seated across from Patricia in her office. Files were spread across her desk, and her eyes seemed to sparkle with an almost incandescent light. Dorothy, may I call you Dorothy? I nodded. Dorothy, your father was an exceptionally astute man. Did you know that 3 months before his passing he had the land surveyed? No, I replied, bewildered. Why would he have done that? Because an entity approached him regarding its acquisition, a natural gas company. They had conducted preliminary assessments and identified what they suspected to be a significant deposit. They offered your father $50,000 for the land. He never informed me. He didn't sell. Patricia continued. According to the correspondence I have unearthed in the county records office, your father penned a reply stating, "This land is designated for my daughter. If it holds a value of $50,000 to you, it is worth considerably more to her." He retained the survey results and all related correspondence in a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Tears welled in my eyes. I was unaware of any safety deposit box. The bank attempted to contact you upon your father's death, but Raymond managed all the estate-related paperwork, I whispered. He insisted he would handle everything, allowing me to focus on my grief. Patricia nodded grimly. I suspected as much. Raymond Caldwell was fully cognizant of the land's true worth when he married you. The geological survey was a matter of public record. He, or someone acting on his behalf, discovered it, conducted further research, and determined that your supposedly worthless inheritance was, in fact, situated atop one of the region's most substantial natural gas deposits. My hands began to tremble. He married me for the land. He married you for $32 million, Patricia stated emphatically. But here's the truly remarkable aspect, Dorothy. Your father didn't merely bequeath you land, he established a trust fund for you. I stared at her, stunned. What? Ernest Robinson established a trust 3 months prior to his demise, $5 million, meticulously accumulated through astute investments and life insurance policies he had secured decades earlier. The trust was structured to be inaccessible except under specific predefined circumstances. Should you divorce, should you be widowed, or should you reach the age of 75? $5 million, I breathed, barely able to articulate the sum. $5 million. Your father's will stipulated that the existence of this trust was to remain undisclosed unless and until those specific conditions were met. He wished to ensure that if you ever required it, it would be readily available and unencumbered. Tears began to stream down my face, a profound release. My daddy, who had toiled in a garage his entire life, who had worn the same 3 pairs of work pants for years, who had never taken a vacation that wasn't a visit to family. My daddy had secretly amassed a fortune for me and meticulously protected it. Patricia offered me a tissue and patiently waited until I could regain my composure. "There is more," she said gently. "I have obtained all the mortgage documents pertaining to your residence. Raymond did indeed forge your signature on those papers, utilizing your land as collateral. That constitutes fraud. Furthermore, I have discovered that he has been systematically transferring marital assets into offshore accounts for the past 5 years, which clearly demonstrates premeditation and intent to defraud you in this divorce proceeding." What does all of this signify? Patricia's smile was not one of warmth. It was the chilling smile of someone poised to deliver justice with exquisite precision. It signifies that when we proceed to court, we will not only invalidate the prenup, we will ensure that you receive every single asset that rightfully belongs to you, in addition to half of everything he attempted to conceal, and he will be responsible for your legal fees. When do we go to court? 2 weeks, Patricia replied. Raymond's attorney filed for divorce this morning. He is acting with more haste than I anticipated, which indicates he is unaware that we have uncovered his scheme. He believes he will simply walk in, present the prenup, and depart with your inheritance. I felt a profound internal shift. The grief and shock were hardening, transforming into something more resolute, something far more potent. "Patricia," I stated deliberately, "I want him to believe he is victorious right up until the precise moment he loses everything." She grinned, a predatory gleam in her eyes. "I was rather hoping you would say that." The ensuing 2 weeks constituted the most convincing performance of my life. I moved back into our home, fully embodying the role of the devastated wife. When Raymond presented me with the divorce papers, his expression of feigned sympathy bordering on nauseating, I dissolved into tears on cue. When he placed a comforting hand on mine and assured me, "I will ensure you are well provided for, Dorothy. You will be fine," I responded with tearful nods. At church, I allowed the congregation to offer their condolences. Sister Beverly from the choir brought me comforting casseroles. Deacon Morris pledged to pray for our reconciliation, and I, with a wistful smile, replied, "Some unions are simply not meant to endure." All the while, Patricia was diligently constructing our case. She obtained court orders for Raymond's financial records. She deposed the bank official who had processed the fraudulent mortgage. She engaged a geological expert to provide testimony regarding the natural gas deposit. She meticulously reviewed 37 years of our joint tax returns. Raymond remained blissfully unaware of the impending legal storm. The evening before court, Loretta joined me with a bottle of wine and some Chinese takeout. In my kitchen, soon to be solely mine, we raised our glasses. "To your father," she toasted, "who cherished you enough to shield you even from beyond his resting place." "To Daddy," I responded, our glasses chiming. "And to Raymond Caldwell," Loretta added, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Who's about to discover you don't trifle with a black woman armed with faith, a sharp attorney, and the unvarnished truth?" We drank to that sentiment. The following morning, I donned my finest Sunday attire, a regal blue ensemble accented with golden buttons. The very dress my father always said lent me an air of nobility. I styled my hair, clasped my pearls, and met my reflection. "This is for you, Daddy," I murmured, "for every sacrifice you made, for every lesson you imparted, for your unwavering protection, even when I was unaware of the peril." The courtroom was precisely as I had envisioned it. Raymond, resplendent in his costly suit, exuded an air of smugness, his legal counsel radiating confidence. Then Patricia rose, clutching a file, and Judge Morrison listened intently, her interest piqued. During the intermission, Raymond's attorney attempted to broker a settlement. She intercepted Patricia in the corridor, proposing $100,000 for me to withdraw my claim discreetly. Patricia's response was a dismissive laugh. "Inform your client we shall reconvene in 20 minutes. Upon our return, Judge Morrison regarded Raymond with an expression akin to disdain for something offensive on her shoe. "Mr. Caldwell," she declared, her voice possessing a glacial quality, "I have thoroughly examined the evidence presented by Mrs. Caldwell's counsel. The indications of fraudulent activity are irrefutable. The prenuptial agreement you are invoking is hereby nullified due to deliberate misrepresentation and the concealment of material facts." Raymond's complexion turned ashen. The judge continued, "The court has determined that you deliberately deceived your spouse by falsifying her signature on mortgage documentation and systematically sequestering marital assets in anticipation of dissolution. Mrs. Caldwell is hereby granted exclusive possession of the property located at 1247 Riverside Road, encompassing all associated mineral rights and underground natural gas reserves. Furthermore, she is awarded the entirety of the trust fund established by Ernest Robinson. In addition, you are mandated to transfer half of all marital assets amassed during your union, including those you endeavored to hide in overseas accounts, to Mrs. Caldwell." Her pronouncement was not yet complete. "You are further ordered to defray Mrs. Caldwell's legal expenses in their entirety, along with all costs associated with the transfer of property deeds and the retrieval of the trust fund. Do you comprehend these terms, Mr. Caldwell?" Raymond appeared on the verge of nausea. "Your Honor, Do you understand these terms?" the judge interjected, her tone sharp. "Yes, Your Honor," he stammered. "This court is adjourned." The gavel fell, and with that, my 37-year marriage dissolved. Outside the courthouse, Raymond attempted to approach me. Patricia instinctively moved to intercept him, but I raised my hand. "Let him speak," I commanded. Raymond appeared diminished, older, his spirit deflated. "Dorothy, we can resolve this. It doesn't have to—" 37 years, I stated softly. 37 years of your deceit. 37 years of your exploitation. You married me for my land, Raymond, for financial gain, not for affection, not for companionship. For $32 million, you believed you could take it all. It wasn't like that." "Don't," I interrupted, my voice gaining strength. "Don't you dare perpetuate another falsehood. I overheard your conversation, Raymond. Every word. The gullible woman who always complies. The simple man who was my father. The most astute investment you ever made." He remained silent, utterly speechless. "My father toiled his entire life in a garage," I continued. "He repaired vehicles and meticulously saved every cent to fund my education. He purchased land intending to leave me a legacy, and even when faced with exploitation, when a gas company offered what they deemed a substantial sum, he refused, because it was for me, because his love for me was paramount." Tears streamed down my face, but I no longer cared. "You disdained him, labeling his life as humble, as if it were a source of shame. But my father possessed more integrity than 10 men like you, Raymond Caldwell. He was honorable. He was benevolent. He safeguarded his daughter even from the afterlife. And you? You are merely a charlatan concealed within an expensive suit. I turned to depart, then paused for one final glance. Oh, and Raymond, you will need to find alternative accommodation. That residence in Hampton Estates now belongs to me as well. You have 30 days to vacate. The expression that crossed his face was worth every tear shed over the preceding 3 months. Patricia drove me back to Loretta's home, where it seemed half of New Hope Baptist Church had gathered, offering sustenance, embraces, and jubilant celebration. Sister Beverly had prepared a cake. Deacon Morris offered a prayer of profound gratitude. And Loretta, my steadfast companion through it all, drew me aside and whispered, "Your father would be immensely proud." That evening, in the solitude of what was now unequivocally my home, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea, perusing the documents Patricia had provided. The deed for the land, now solely in my possession, the trust fund documentation bearing my father's signature, and a sealed letter, dated 3 days prior to his passing, which Patricia had discovered in a safe deposit box. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. "My dearest Dorothy Jean," the missive began, penned in my father's meticulous script. "If you are reading this, it signifies my departure, and a circumstance has arisen compelling you to access this inheritance. I am unaware of the specific event, but I understand my beloved daughter. I know you would only access this trust in times of genuine necessity. I have dedicated my life to diligent work, and all that I have established was for you. This is not because I doubt your self-sufficiency. Lord knows you are the most resilient woman I know. It is because even the strongest individuals occasionally require a safety net. That parcel of land on Riverside Road holds more value than you might presently comprehend. I had it assessed. There is something of great worth concealed beneath its surface. While the technical details elude my full grasp, this much is clear: it is yours. Do not permit anyone to claim what is rightfully yours, my precious girl. Not family, not friends, and most certainly not some smooth-talking man who fancies himself intellectually superior. You are a Robinson. We do not surrender. We do not yield, and we do not tolerate being subjugated. I love you more than all the stars in the heavens, your daddy. I wept until all tears were spent, yet these were different tears, tears of love, of sorrow, of profound gratitude, and of something else entirely, a sensation akin to liberation. My phone vibrated, a text message from an unfamiliar number. "Mrs. Caldwell, this is Terence Johnson from Apex Natural Gas Corporation. We have been attempting to contact you regarding the property on Riverside Road. We would be keen to discuss a most advantageous offer for the mineral rights. Kindly contact me at your earliest convenience." A smile touched my lips as I deleted the message. That land was not going anywhere. It was my father's legacy, and now it was mine. As I sat contemplating the future and the recent events, my phone rang again. This time it was Patricia. "Dorothy, we have encountered an obstacle," she stated, her voice imbued with an urgency that sent a chill down my spine. "Raymond's attorney has just submitted an emergency motion." The transmission cut out abruptly. I stared at my phone, my heart pounding erratically. Then the doorbell began to ring at 10:30 in the evening, a persistent, insistent peal that refused to cease. I stood frozen in my kitchen, phone clutched in one hand, the other gripping the counter. The doorbell continued its barrage, long, determined bursts that reverberated through the house. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Who is it?" I called out, moving cautiously toward the front entrance, but halting in the hallway. My father's words echoed in my memory. "Don't open the door at night unless you know who's on the other side." "Mrs. Caldwell, this is Officer Marcus Webb from the police department. We received a 911 call from this address reporting a domestic disturbance." My blood ran cold. I had not initiated any such call. Mom, I still require you to open the door so we can verify your safety. I peered through the peephole, observing a black officer in uniform, his badge clearly discernible. Behind him stood Raymond. My stomach plummeted. This was a calculated deception. I immediately redialed Patricia. She answered on the first ring. Dorothy, are you unharmed? The call had terminated. The police are at my door, I relayed, modulating my voice to a low whisper. Raymond is with them. They claim someone contacted 911 about a domestic disturbance. Do not open that door, Patricia commanded crisply. I am contacting my associate at the precinct immediately. Remain on the line with me. I could hear her engaging in another call, her voice authoritative as she addressed the individual on the other end. Meanwhile, Officer Webb knocked again, this time more gently. Mrs. Caldwell, I understand this is distressing, but I have a legal responsibility to ensure your well-being when a 911 call is received. Officer Webb, I called through the door. My legal counsel is currently on the telephone. She is in communication with your precinct. I did not make a 911 call, and I am safe and alone in my residence. I heard Raymond's voice, muffled yet distinct. Officer, my wife is experiencing significant emotional distress. She has not been herself lately. I am concerned she may harm herself. The sheer audacity of the man. Patricia returned to the line. All right, Lieutenant Foster is currently speaking with Officer Webb. The 911 call originated from Raymond's mobile phone. He alleged you were threatening self-harm and that he was worried about you. That deceitful snake, I hissed. Dorothy, listen to me carefully. This is a tactic of harassment. He is attempting to portray you as unstable. Do not engage with him. Allow the officer to confirm your safety, but under no circumstances should you admit Raymond into your home. Officer Webb's phone rang. He stepped aside to answer it, and through the peephole, I observed his expression shift from concern to annoyance. He concluded the call and turned to Raymond. Mr. Caldwell, you need to vacate this property immediately. But officer, my wife is no longer my wife as of today. According to the court records my lieutenant has just accessed, and she is clearly unharmed. You have made a false 911 call, which is a criminal offense. You must leave now, or I will be compelled to arrest you for criminal trespass and the misuse of emergency services. I watched as Raymond's face flushed crimson. This is my house. No, sir. According to the divorce decree filed this afternoon, this residence now belongs to Mrs. Dorothy Caldwell. You have 30 days to remove your personal effects, but you are not permitted to be present here at, he glanced at his watch, 10:45 at night without her consent. Raymond gazed at the door, and I knew he could sense my scrutiny. Dorothy, he called out, we need to talk. Mr. Caldwell, depart now. Officer Webb's hand moved towards his belt. I watched Raymond storm off to his Mercedes and accelerate away from the driveway. Only then did I open the door. Officer Webb offered an apologetic smile. Ma'am, I apologize for that. Are you quite all right? I am fine, officer. Thank you for your professional handling of the situation. Lieutenant Foster has briefed me on your circumstances. We will maintain an elevated patrol presence on this street tonight. Should Mr. Caldwell attempt to return, do not hesitate to contact 911 immediately. Do you understand? After he departed, I sank onto the couch, my hands trembling. Patricia remained on the line. That man is acting out of desperation, she remarked, which brings me to the reason for my call. His emergency motion asserts that the trust fund bequeathed to you by your father was, in fact, marital property because he purportedly assisted you in maintaining your relationship with your father during your marriage, thereby contributing to your inheritance. A bitter laugh escaped me. He helped me maintain my relationship with my father? Patricia, Raymond barely tolerated Daddy. always made excuses to avoid visiting him, called him simple, acted as though spending time with my family was beneath him. I am aware, and we will definitively prove this. However, this motion necessitates our return to court next week. He is determined to fight this. After our conversation concluded, sleep eluded me. I settled into my father's old recliner, the sole piece of furniture I had retained from his home, and reflected on the entirety of the situation. At 72 years of age, I should have been relishing my retirement, perhaps embarking on travels, or enjoying the company of friends. Instead, I found myself engaged in a fierce conflict with a man I had loved for nearly 40 years. The following morning, a Sunday, I attended church services. I sought the solace of my community, the spiritual uplift, and a reminder of my identity beyond the turmoil with Raymond. New Hope Baptist was, as always, bustling with congregants. I quietly took my customary pew, and Sister Beverly immediately joined me, clasping my hand. "How are you holding up, dear?" "I am present," I replied. That is about all I can honestly say. Pastor Williams, a distinguished gentleman in his 60s with silver hair, who had officiated at my wedding to Raymond many years ago, delivered a sermon on the narrative of David and Goliath. "At times," he declared, his voice resonating through the sanctuary, "God permits us to confront a giant, not to vanquish us, but to reveal to ourselves and to all observers precisely who we are. David did not require Saul's armor. He did not need conventional weaponry. He needed faith, and he needed to remember his divine design." I felt those words permeate my very being. Following the service, Pastor Williams beckoned me into his office. "Sister Dorothy," he began, "I am aware of the proceedings in court. I must share something with you." I sat down, a sudden apprehension taking hold. "Raymond sought me out 6 months ago," Pastor Williams stated, his voice grave. "He inquired about the divorce procedures within the church. I counseled him, offered prayers, and suggested marital therapy. He claimed you two had drifted apart, that your focus on teaching was excessive, and that you did not comprehend his world." "He was orchestrating this for months," I whispered. "I am deeply regretful that I believed him." Pastor Williams continued, "He is a masterful actor. Sister Dorothy, he led me to believe you were the one who had disengaged from the marriage. However, yesterday, Sister Beverly recounted the true events concerning the land, the fraud, and the entirety of his scheme." He leaned forward, his gaze intense. "That man sat in my office and deliberately misled a man of God. He exploited this church as an instrument in his plot. I want you to know that New Hope Baptist unequivocally stands with you. Whatever your requirements may be, witnesses to testify to his character, financial assistance for legal expenditures, or a secure place to stay should you feel unsafe, we are here for you." Tears welled in my eyes. "Thank you, Pastor." "One more thing," he said, producing a folder. "I reviewed our church archives, every instance of your father's contributions to New Hope, every volunteer hour he logged, every church event he attended. I am compiling copies for your attorney. If Raymond intends to assert that he facilitated your connection with your father, we possess 30 years of documentation demonstrating Ernest Robinson's active involvement in this church until his passing. And Raymond, in contrast, seldom graced Sunday services." That afternoon, I met with Patricia at her office. She spread photographs across her desk, images from church directories, newspaper clippings, and photographs from community events. "This is the foundation of our case," she stated. "A comprehensive chronology of your father's life and your bond with him, every Sunday dinner, every holiday celebration, every occasion when Ernest Robinson was present for you, and your husband was conspicuously absent." She pointed to a photograph from a church barbecue in 2005. "There is your father at the grill wearing an apron, sharing a laugh with Deacon Morris. I am beside him, holding a platter. Raymond is nowhere in sight." "Where was your husband that day?" Patricia inquired. "A golf tournament with his colleagues," I recalled. "He claimed it was essential for networking." "He prioritized golf over your father's 75th birthday celebration," Patricia observed, making a note. "We have documented numerous instances of this nature." Over the subsequent week, my residence transformed into a strategic command center. Loretta arrived each evening with meals and much-needed moral support. Patricia brought stacks of meticulously organized documents. Sister Beverly coordinated a rotation of church members to stay with me at night, a comforting presence following the distressing 911 incident. We unearthed photographs, greeting cards, and letters, all tangible evidence of my profound connection with my father, a connection entirely independent of Raymond. My father's friends from the garage came forward with sworn statements detailing earnest concerns regarding my marriage. They recounted his distrust of Raymond and his deliberate establishment of the trust fund, driven by a premonition that I might one day require its protection. "Your father saw through Raymond from the very outset," stated Leon Fletcher, who had collaborated with my father for 40 years. We sat in my living room as Patricia recorded his deposition. "Ernest confided in me once, 'Leon, that man married my daughter for all the wrong reasons. I cannot prove it, but I feel it in my gut. I am determined to ensure Dorothy's security.'" "When did this conversation take place?" Patricia inquired. "Approximately 1 year into their marriage, perhaps 1988 or 89. Raymond visited the garage one day, inquiring about the land on Riverside Road. He wanted to ascertain if Ernest had ever commissioned a survey or if any purchase offers had been made. Ernest did not appreciate these inquiries. He confided in me later that evening, expressing his unease, stating that something was amiss." The disparate pieces of the puzzle began to coalesce. Raymond had been meticulously planning this for 37 years. On Wednesday, 3 days prior to the emergency hearing, I was at home diligently grading essays. I had accepted a part-time tutoring position to occupy my mind when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I observed a young black woman in a business suit carrying a briefcase. "Mrs. Caldwell, my name is Jasmine Porter. I am an executive with Apex Natural Gas Corporation. I am aware that you deleted our previous message, but I genuinely require an opportunity to speak with you regarding the Riverside Road property." Against my better judgment, I opened the door. "I am not interested in selling." "I am not here to exert pressure," Jasmine stated quickly. "In fact, I am here to offer you a word of caution. May I step inside for just 5 minutes?" Something in the earnestness of her expression prompted me to move aside. We sat in my living room, and she produced a folder. "Mrs. Caldwell, I conducted the initial geological survey of your property in 2018 when I was a junior geologist. I reported to my supervisor that the natural gas deposit was estimated to be worth approximately $32 million. However, there is an element that the survey did not incorporate into the official report." She revealed supplementary documents adorned with technical diagrams and numerical data that held no meaning for me. "There exists a secondary deposit," Jasmine explained quietly, "deeper within the earth. We detected indications of it, but could not confirm its presence without more invasive testing, which we were unable to perform without the property owner's explicit authorization. However, based on the data we managed to collect, that second deposit could be valued at an additional $40 million. I stared at her, stunned. $40 million. I was unable to include it in the official report because it remained unconfirmed. But Mrs. Caldwell, your land sits atop an estimated $72 million in natural gas reserves, and there are individuals who are privy to this information." "Does Raymond know?" "I do not believe so, but someone is aware, someone who has been making inquiries regarding the acquisition of the land." Someone who is offering to cover your ex-husband's legal expenses contingent upon his success in wresting the property from you in court. My blood turned to ice. Who? A gentleman named Marcus Jennings. He serves as the vice president of our competitor, Continental Gas and Oil. He was the individual who initially approached your father back in the 90s. When your father refused to sell, Jennings has been observing and waiting. Why are you informing me of this? Jasmine met my gaze directly. Because your father was a man of integrity. When he declined our offer, he penned a letter articulating that the land was intended for his daughter's future, that it represented legacy, not mere monetary value. That letter circulated throughout our company. It left a lasting impression on me. Upon learning of your divorce and the subsequent legal proceedings, I realized the true machinations at play. Jennings is leveraging your ex-husband as a pawn to gain possession of your land. She handed me the folder. This contains all the pertinent information, the secondary survey data, the correspondence between Jennings and various entities seeking to acquire your property, and even some intercepted electronic communications that our legal department obtained through lawful means. Present this to your attorney. Why would your company assist me? Because Apex conducts its business ethically. If we desire your mineral rights, we will present you with a fair offer, and you will have the prerogative to accept or decline. We do not engage in manipulation, we do not perpetrate fraud, and we take strong exception to being outmaneuvered by competitors who do. She rose to leave. There is one final matter. The emergency filing your ex-husband initiated, it was prepared by legal counsel, compensated by Continental. Jennings is orchestrating this. Following Jasmine's departure, I contacted Patricia without delay. She arrived within the hour, and we dedicated the evening to meticulously reviewing every document Jasmine had supplied. This alters the entire landscape, Patricia declared, her eyes alight with intensity. Should we establish that Raymond's urgent plea is being subsidized by a third party with a vested financial stake in your property, the judge will dismiss it outright. This transcends mere marital deception, Dorothy. This is a grand conspiracy. Can we substantiate this in 3 days? We are on the precipice of discovering that. Patricia worked ceaselessly. She secured sworn testimony from Jasmine Porter. She obtained court mandates for Continental Gas and Oil's communications department. She enlisted a forensic auditor who meticulously traced financial transactions from Continental to the law firm representing Raymond. Friday evening, the eve of the hearing, sleep eluded me. My thoughts were consumed by thoughts of my father, of his prescient awareness of this unfolding situation, and how he had shielded me even after his passing. I contemplated the ancestral land, passed down through generations, the legacy of my great-grandfather who acquired it when individuals of color were systematically denied property ownership. That land symbolized far more than monetary value. It embodied resilience, defiance, and heritage, and Raymond had presumed to seize it as if by right. At 2 a.m., I rose to prepare coffee. I was seated at the kitchen table when the unmistakable sound of shattering glass echoed from the living room. Before I could react, my rear door burst open and 2 masked individuals stormed inside. I cried out, but one of them was upon me instantly, his gloved hand clamped over my mouth. "Where are the documents?" he rasped. "The survey plats. Where are they?" I struggled, but I was 72 years old, and he possessed considerable strength. The second man was systematically dismantling my living room, rummaging through Patricia's evidence boxes. "Check upstairs," the first man commanded. It was at this precise moment that Sister Beverly descended the staircase, appearing as a formidable guardian. Clutched in her hands was my father's old baseball bat. She had been staying with me, occupying the guest bedroom. "Take your hands off her," Beverly swung the bat, forcing the man restraining me to release me to evade the blow. She swung again, striking his shoulder with a sickening thud, eliciting a howl of pain. The second man lunged at Beverly, but she was prepared. Having been married to a Marine for 30 years before his passing, she was more than capable of defending herself. The bat connected with his ribs, and he crumpled to the floor. I seized my phone and initiated a genuine call to 911. "You'd best make yourselves scarce," Beverly declared to the intruders, her bat held aloft, "because the police are en route and I'm merely getting started." They fled, crashing back through the very door they had breached. Beverly immediately attended to me, checking for any injuries. "I'm unharmed," I managed, trembling. "Beverly, you are my savior." "My dear, I assured you I had your back," she responded. Yet I could observe the tremor in her hands as well. No one lays a hand on my sister in Christ. The authorities arrived, recorded statements, and processed for latent prints. Officer Webb was on duty once more, his expression grave as he examined the damaged entryway. "Mrs. Caldwell, these individuals were professionals. This was no opportunistic burglary." "What were they seeking?" Patricia arrived before I could offer a response, her hair neatly secured in a silk scarf. Clad in sweatpants, she surveyed the disarray and promptly made a telephone call. "We are accelerating the hearing," she announced after concluding her call. "An emergency session has been scheduled for 8 a.m. Judge Morrison is already apprised of the home invasion. Dorothy, someone is exceedingly desperate to prevent you from appearing in court tomorrow." "Today," I corrected, glancing at the clock. It was 3:47 a.m. "Court is today." At 8 a.m. I entered the courtroom, a bandage adorning my arm from an abrasion sustained during the confrontation with Sister Beverly, who stood beside me like a formidable protector, with Loretta and a significant contingent from New Hope Baptist Church filing in behind us. Raymond was already present, exuding an air of confidence. His legal representative was rustling papers, and in the rear row sat a Caucasian man in an expensive suit, whom I had never encountered. He observed the proceedings with palpable interest. Judge Morrison assumed her position on the bench, her countenance thunderous. "I am aware that an incident occurred at Mrs. Caldwell's residence earlier this morning. Officer Webb, you are present to provide sworn testimony." "Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Caldwell's home was forcibly entered by two masked assailants who demanded survey documents. They absconded before we could effect their apprehension, but we are processing DNA evidence from blood discovered at the scene. One of the intruders sustained an injury during the altercation." The judge directed her gaze toward Raymond. "Mr. Caldwell, did you possess any prior knowledge of this intrusion?" "No, Your Honor." Raymond appeared genuinely astounded. Perhaps he was indeed unaware. Perhaps Jennings had not divulged every detail. "Miss Green," the judge addressed me, "I understand you have new evidence to present." Patricia rose, a picture of professional competence. "Your Honor, we possess evidence demonstrating that Mr. Caldwell's urgent motion was not submitted in good faith, but rather as an integral component of a conspiracy involving Continental Gas and Oil Corporation intended to fraudulently dispossess my client of her property." She systematically laid out the case. The documentation procured from Jasmine Porter, the forensic accounting revealing monetary transfers from Continental to Raymond's legal team, and the communications confirming Marcus Jennings's manipulative involvement from the outset. Furthermore, Your Honor, we contend that the intrusion at Mrs. Caldwell's residence this morning constituted an attempt to pilfer evidence that would expose this intricate conspiracy. We therefore request that the court not only reject Mr. Caldwell's emergency motion, but also institute a comprehensive criminal inquiry into the actions of Continental Gas and Oil. Raymond's attorney stood, his complexion ashen. Your Honour, we had absolutely no awareness of any third-party involvement. If Ms. Green's assertions hold true, my client is, in essence, as much a victim. Your client, Judge Morrison interjected, her voice sharp as fragmented glass, has been engaged in fraudulent practices against his wife for the past 37 years. I find it exceedingly difficult to believe he is a victim of anything beyond his own insatiable avarice. She then directed her attention to the man in the expensive suit occupying the rear bench. Bailiff, I require that gentleman's identification. If he is indeed who I suspect him to be, we are about to engage in a most illuminating discourse. The gentleman in question began to rise with intent to depart, but the bailiff was already positioned to obstruct the exit. Within minutes, confirmation was received. It was Marcus Jennings, representing Continental Gas and Oil. Judge Morrison's gaze could have emitted laser beams. Mr. Jennings, you will immediately resume your seat. I am holding you in contempt of court pending a thorough investigation into your complicity in this matter. Bailiff, ensure he remains present. She then turned her attention back to us. Ms. Green, your motion is hereby granted. Mr. Caldwell's emergency petition is denied. Moreover, I am issuing a protective order prohibiting any party from contacting Mrs. Caldwell concerning the Riverside Road property for the ensuing 6 months. I am also forwarding this case to the District Attorney's Office for a criminal investigation. She brought her gavel down with finality. This court is adjourned. Mrs. Caldwell, you have my sincerest apologies for having to endure such an ordeal. Outside the courthouse, Patricia embraced me warmly. It is concluded, Dorothy. It is truly concluded. However, as we proceeded toward the parking lot, I observed Raymond standing by his vehicle, and he was not alone. 3 men accompanied him, and their demeanor suggested considerable animosity. One of them stepped forward, and I recognized him from a photograph Jasmine had shown me. He was one of Marcus Jennings's associates. Mrs. Caldwell, he stated, his voice a low, menacing growl. You are making a grave error. That land rightfully belongs to those who comprehend its true value. Sister Beverly instinctively positioned herself between us, but the man merely scoffed. You believe you have triumphed? This is far from over, not by a considerable margin. He then turned and departed, leaving me standing there, my heart pounding and a chilling premonition that the gravest challenges still lay ahead. I found no respite that night. Sister Beverly insisted on remaining with me, and Loretta arrived with Thomas. They advocated for contacting the authorities regarding the threat. But what precisely would I articulate? A man issuing an ultimatum outside a courthouse. That hardly constituted a criminal offense, merely a harbinger of future difficulties. Dorothy, you must seriously consider divesting yourself of that land, Thomas advised gently. He was a retired law enforcement officer, and the concern etched on his features unnerved me more than the direct threat. These individuals operate outside the bounds of fair play. You have already endured a home invasion. What if, next time, Beverly is indisposed? What if their objective extends beyond merely acquiring documents? Thomas is correct, Loretta concurred. $72 million represents life-altering wealth. My dear, accept it and extricate yourself from this entanglement. But I continue to reflect on my father's letter. Do not permit anyone to seize what is rightfully yours. And I envisioned my great-grandfather acquiring that very land when the world decreed he possessed no inherent right to ownership. I contemplated generations of the Robinson lineage who steadfastly retained possession of that property through the oppressive eras of Jim Crow, through the economic devastation of the Depression, through every conceivable hardship. I am not selling, I stated softly, not to Continental Gas and not to anyone. This endeavor has transcended mere financial considerations. The following morning, Sunday, Pastor Williams dedicated his entire sermon, to the unwavering principle of standing resolute in the face of adversity. Daniel did not capitulate to the king's decree, he expounded, because certain convictions are profoundly worth defending, even when the inferno rages and the predators hunger. Following the service, he convened a special assembly in the fellowship hall. 50 church members remained, and Pastor Williams meticulously outlined the situation, detailing the threats, the home invasion, and the conspiracy. "Sister Dorothy requires our support," he declared. "She necessitates protection, she needs witnesses, and she must be assured that her church family stands firmly behind her. I am soliciting volunteers to establish a surveillance schedule, ensuring she is never left unattended, and to be readily available to provide testimony should this matter proceed to trial." Without exception, every individual present raised their hand. Deacon Morris stepped forward. "I have secured security cameras from my grandson's electronics establishment. We will be installing them at Sister Dorothy's residence today. Front entrance, rear access, the driveway. Every point of entry will be monitored." "I possess military training," offered Brother James, a man of few words who typically occupied a rear pew. "I will oversee the coordination of the watch schedule. No one will gain access to Sister Dorothy on my watch." Sister Beverly enveloped me in a warm embrace. "You see, my dear, you are not alone in this struggle." Monday morning, Patricia contacted me with significant news. The district attorney's office is acting with considerable celerity. This morning, they executed search warrants at the offices of Continental Gas and Oil. They unearthed correspondence between Marcus Jennings and Raymond that explicitly discussed the land acquisition, the divorce proceedings, and all related matters. This constitutes the entirety of the evidence required for criminal charges against Raymond, and indeed against both of them, encompassing charges of fraud, conspiracy, and potentially attempted extortion. Dorothy, Raymond could be facing substantial incarceration. A portion of me experienced a sense of vindication, yet another part, the part that had once held affection for him, that had genuinely believed in the sanctity of our union, was overcome with a profound sadness. 37 years, and it had all been a meticulously crafted deception. "There is more," Patricia continued. "Jasmine Porter has contacted me. Apex Natural Gas is prepared to extend an offer for the mineral rights, not to acquire the land outright, but merely to lease the rights for gas extraction. They are proposing $70 million, dispersed over a period of 20 years, in addition to royalties on all extracted resources." My head swam. $70 million? "It is a fair proposal, Dorothy. You would retain ownership of the land, but they would possess the rights for gas extraction. You would receive annual payments, plus a percentage of the profits. By the time the venture concludes, you could potentially realize upwards of $100 million. $100 million. The sheer magnitude of such a sum was beyond my comprehension. "I require time to consider this," I responded. "Take all the time you deem necessary. But Dorothy, they are offering you security, financial liberation, the capacity to cast aside all anxieties." That evening I settled into my father's recliner, contemplating the myriad possibilities that such an influx of wealth would unlock. I could retire entirely, traverse the globe, acquire a beachfront residence. Yet these aspirations felt strangely hollow. What would my father have done? Then an epiphany struck. Tuesday morning I reconnected with Patricia. "I will accept Apex's offer, but with specific stipulations." And what nature of stipulations might those be? "I intend to establish a foundation, the Ernest Robinson Educational Foundation. My objective is to fund scholarships for African American students pursuing degrees in STEM fields, vocational training programs, and educational initiatives, providing them with the resources necessary to construct their futures. I wish to acquire the very garage where my father toiled and transform it into a community centre offering vocational training programs. And I am committed to ensuring that Lincoln High School's library receives comprehensive funding for the next 20 years. Patricia was momentarily silent. Then her voice cracked with palpable emotion. Dorothy, that is an exceptionally noble endeavour. Allow me to draft the necessary legal documentation. One further consideration, I added. I wish to allocate $1 million endowment to New Hope Baptist Church. Pastor Williams has spoken for years about the urgent need to renovate the Community Outreach Centre. Let us make that a reality. Your father would undoubtedly be immensely proud. We finalized the agreement with Apex on Wednesday. Jasmine Porter personally visited Patricia's office to oversee the signing. As my signature graced the documents that would irrevocably alter the trajectory of my existence, she offered me a smile. Your father declined an offer of $50,000 for this land because he recognized its intrinsic value far exceeded that amount, she remarked, not solely in monetary terms, but in its symbolic significance. You are honoring that profound legacy, Mrs. Caldwell. Please call me Dorothy, I responded, and thank you for the warning. You were not obligated to provide it. Yes, I was, she stated simply. Doing what is right is not always effortless, but it is invariably essential. Thursday morning, a forceful pounding on my door roused me from slumber. Brother James, who was on watch duty, was already at the threshold, his phone poised for a 911 call. Through the security camera feed, I could discern police vehicles occupying my driveway. This time, however, Officer Webb greeted me with a smile as I opened the door. Mrs. Caldwell, I believed you would wish to be informed. We have apprehended the 2 individuals responsible for the home invasion. The DNA collected from the blood drawn by Sister Beverly with that baseball bat has been positively matched to a known associate of Continental Gas and Oil. Both are presently in custody and cooperating fully. They have implicated Marcus Jennings and Raymond Caldwell in exchange for leniency in their charges, Raymond as well. He was aware of the break-in, ma'am. He provided them with your security code for the rear entrance. This effectively makes him an accessory. I ought to have felt a sense of triumph. Instead, I was utterly exhausted. When are their trials anticipated? Likely a couple of months from now. The district attorney intends to make a resounding example of this case. Corporate malfeasance, conspiracy, home invasion. This will generate significant media attention. After his departure, I sank heavily onto my couch. Brother James prepared tea for me and remained by my side in quiet companionship, refraining from pressuring me to speak. Finally, I confessed, I once loved him, genuinely loved him. How could I have been so blind to his true nature? Individuals who harbour deceptive intentions will meticulously study you, Brother James offered gently. They will discern your desires, your deepest beliefs, and they will cater to them. That is not a reflection of your failing, Sister Dorothy. The culpability rests entirely with them. Friday afternoon, Patricia contacted me with further developments. Raymond's legal counsel has reached out to me. He is amenable to a plea arrangement. And what sort of arrangement is being proposed? He will plead guilty to all charges, provide testimony against Marcus Jennings and Continental Gas, and relinquish any future claims to your property or assets. In return, he requests that the prosecution recommend a more lenient sentence. What is the district attorney's stance on this proposal? They are presently considering it. With Raymond's testimony, they possess the leverage to dismantle the entire Continental Gas conspiracy. However, they wish to ascertain your perspective on the matter. I contemplated retribution, the prospect of witnessing Raymond incarcerated for decades, of inflicting upon him the very suffering he had subjected me to. Then my father's letter resurfaced in my mind, advocating for the cultivation of positive endeavours rather than succumbing to bitterness. Inform them that I harbour no objections to the proposed agreement, I stated. I do not seek vengeance, Patricia. My sole desire is for this ordeal to conclude. Are you absolutely certain? I am certain. Allow Raymond to testify. Let him assist in bringing down those who exploited him. Perhaps, somewhere within that process, he may rediscover a fragment of the man I once believed him to be. The trial of Marcus Jennings and Continental Gas and Oil commenced in November. I attended every session, occupying a front row seat alongside Loretta, Sister Beverly, and Patricia. The courtroom was abuzz with reporters, legal observers, and members of New Hope Baptist Church, who had assembled to offer their unwavering support. Raymond took the witness stand on the third day. He appeared aged, gaunt, diminished within his orange jumpsuit. As he was sworn in, his hand trembled. The prosecutor meticulously guided him through the narrative. How Jennings had approached him 38 years prior, presenting him with geological survey findings, how they had meticulously planned the marriage and the prenuptial agreement, how Continental had funded his legal expenses, and how he had divulged the security code that facilitated the home invasion. Mr. Caldwell? The prosecutor inquired. During your 37-year marriage, did you at any point harbour genuine affection for your wife? Raymond's gaze met mine across the courtroom. For a fleeting instant, I perceived a genuine emotion in his expression. Regret, perhaps shame. It was impossible to ascertain with certainty. I convinced myself I did not, he stated softly. I rationalized that she was merely a means to an end, that our union was purely a business arrangement, but somewhere along the way, he paused, swallowing with apparent difficulty. She was kind, patient. She held faith in me even when I was undeserving, and I irrevocably destroyed that. I annihilated everything good in my existence for wealth that I never even attained. The prosecutor pressed on. Did you ever contemplate confessing the truth to your wife? Every single day, Raymond avowed, tears streaming down his face. Every day for 37 years. But I was too deeply entangled. Jennings held absolute dominion over me. He absolved my gambling debts in the 1990s, concealed my extramarital affair in 2003, and orchestrated the disappearance of my investment fraud in 2010. Each time I entertained the notion of revealing the truth, he would remind me of his capacity to obliterate me. Therefore, I maintained my silence, and in doing so, I forfeited the sole authentic treasure I ever possessed. Hearing these revelations did not evoke a sense of vindication. It left me feeling hollow. Marcus Jennings was convicted on all counts: conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted extortion, and accessory to breaking and entering. He received a sentence of 15 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay $10 million in damages. Continental Gas and Oil was assessed a $50 million fine and prohibited from conducting business within the state. Raymond was sentenced to 5 years with the possibility of parole after 3. As they escorted him away, he looked in my direction one final time. I am truly sorry, Dorothy, he uttered, for whatever solace that may offer. I offered a slight nod. It was all I could impart. December arrived, bringing with it a wave of transformation. The Ernest Robinson Educational Foundation bestowed its inaugural scholarships, granting 20 students full tuition to college or vocational institutions. I was present at the ceremony, witnessing young African American individuals weep tears of profound relief and unadulterated joy as their aspirations solidified into tangible possibilities. My father's former workshop was reborn as the Robinson Community Center, providing vital job training, GED preparation, and mentorship for aspiring entrepreneurs. Leon Fletcher, an old confidant of my father's, performed the ribbon-cutting ceremony while I stood beside him, both of us overcome with emotion. Lincoln High School's library underwent a complete refurbishment and was subsequently renamed the Dorothy Caldwell Reading Center. Former students, now educators themselves, returned to share poignant anecdotes of how my guidance had profoundly shaped their lives. New Hope Baptist Church initiated construction on its new Community Outreach Center, a facility slated to house a food pantry, a health clinic, and dedicated spaces for community organizing efforts. And I acquired a modest dwelling in close proximity to the ocean in South Carolina. It was unpretentious, merely a sanctuary where I could repose on the veranda, observe the ceaseless rhythm of the waves, and finally exhale. On Christmas Eve, I journeyed to Riverside Road for the first time since the conclusion of the legal proceedings. The landscape remained unchanged, sparse undergrowth and towering pine trees, unremarkable to the uninitiated observer, unaware of the treasures concealed beneath the surface. Yet I possessed knowledge. I understood that this land harbored my family's narrative, my great-grandfather's unwavering resolve, my father's enduring affection, and my own future. Apex had commenced preliminary surveying for their extraction operations, but they had pledged to preserve the majority of the land, to safeguard the venerable trees my father had cherished, and to demonstrate profound respect for the intrinsic significance of this place. I stood there amidst the biting winter air, feeling an almost palpable presence beside me, as if my father was standing with me. "I did it," I whispered. "I protected what belonged to us. I utilized it to forge something beneficial, precisely as you would have." A gentle breeze rustled through the pines, and I chose to interpret it as his affirmative response. January ushered in an era of new beginnings. The inaugural classes at the community center commenced, with 40 individuals enrolled in welding, HVAC repair, and computer programming courses. The beneficiaries of the scholarships sent me notes of gratitude that invariably brought me to tears. I then resumed teaching, though not in a formal academic setting, but within the Adult Literacy Initiative at our local library. This involved dedicating one evening weekly to guiding adults through the fundamental art of reading, witnessing the dawning comprehension on their faces as the printed word began to hold meaning. "You don't need to do this," Loretta remarked one evening as she drove me to my class. "You're financially secure now. You could be enjoying your leisure." I responded, "My father toiled his entire life not so I could relax, but so I could effect change, and that is precisely what I am doing." Among my pupils was a woman named Grace, age 65, who had concealed her inability to read throughout her entire life. Upon successfully finishing her very first full book, a modest chapter book, her face was a cascade of tears as she looked at me. "I never imagined I could accomplish this," she confessed. "You always possessed the capability," I reassured her. "You simply needed someone to champion your potential." Driving home that night, I grasped the profound gift my father had bestowed upon me. It wasn't merely about material possessions or land, but the unwavering conviction that I was worthy of safeguarding, of investment, of profound belief. Raymond had dedicated 37 years to undermining my self-worth, convincing me I was less than I truly was. Conversely, my father had dedicated his entire existence to illuminating my inherent value. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, I received an unforeseen visitor. Raymond's attorney contacted me to relay that Raymond wished to meet. He was housed in a minimum security facility 2 hours away, and he had added my name to his approved visitation roster. My initial inclination was to decline. What remained to be discussed? Yet an undeniable pull compelled me to go. Perhaps it was a pursuit of resolution, or sheer curiosity. Or perhaps it was the enduring fragment of the person who had once loved him, yearning to confront the reality of who he had become. The designated visiting area was stark and somber. Raymond entered, clad in prison-issue fatigues, appearing gaunt and considerably older than his 73 years. We were seated opposite one another, a table separating us, and for a considerable duration neither of us uttered a word. "Thank you for coming," he finally stated. "I'm uncertain why I accepted the invitation," I replied. "I've been undergoing therapy," he continued, "initially mandated by the court, but I persisted because I needed to comprehend how I devolved into this person, how I could have inflicted such harm upon you." "And what insights have you gained?" I inquired. "That I was fundamentally hollow," he responded simply. "My entire sense of self was contingent upon wealth, social standing, and the opinions of others. I never cultivated any genuine substance within myself. And when I encountered you, Dorothy, you were so authentic, so unvarnished, it was terrifying to me. Thus I rationalized that you were merely a means to an end, because if you were simply a transaction, I wouldn't have to confront any emotional reality." "Was that effective?" I asked. He shook his head. "Every time you smiled at me, every instance you offered support, even when I was cruel, every time you sang with your full heart in that church choir, it gnawed at me because you deserved so much more." "Yes," I stated plainly, "I did. I've heard about the foundation, the scholarships, the community center. Dorothy, you transformed something I attempted to seize into something magnificent. That is your essence. That is the legacy my father instilled in me. Ernest was a superior man to anything I could ever aspire to be," Raymond said with a quiet resignation. I dismissed him as simple, but he grasped what truly held significance. Love, family, a lasting impact. I understood none of it. We sat in silence for a brief interval. "I do not forgive you," I declared at last. "I cannot say if I ever will, but I no longer harbor animosity towards you. I simply feel an absence of emotion, and perhaps that is a more profound consequence for you than hatred would be." He nodded slowly. "I deserve that. I hope you discover whatever you are seeking within these walls," I said, rising to my feet. "I hope your therapy proves beneficial. I hope you evolve into a better person. But Raymond, my involvement ends here. This is our final farewell." "I understand," he replied. "Farewell, Dorothy. I am truly sorry." I departed from that correctional facility and never looked back. Spring arrived, ushering in my 73rd birthday. New Hope Baptist Church hosted a celebration for me in their fellowship hall, and it felt as though the entire community had assembled. My former students, scholarship recipients, graduates of the community center, my church family, all united in celebrating with me. Pastor Williams rose and raised his glass. To Sister Dorothy, who demonstrated to all of us the profound meaning of transforming adversity into purpose, treachery into grace, and loss into enduring impact. To Dorothy! A chorus of cheers erupted. Sister Beverly embraced me warmly. "How does it feel, darling, to be liberated?" "It feels," I replied, surveying the multitude of cherished faces, the thriving community I had helped cultivate, the bright futures I had secured for so many young individuals, like soaring. That evening I sat on my rear veranda, gazing up at the stars. Somewhere beyond, I like to believe my father was observing, proud of the woman he had nurtured, proud of the way I had utilized his bequests. "Thank you, Daddy," I whispered, "for everything." A gentle breeze rustled through the trees, and from a distance, I heard the distinct sound of a car door closing, followed by footsteps and voices. My security system indicated Loretta and Thomas approaching the house, carrying what appeared to be a cake. "We know you said no more birthday celebrations today," Loretta called out. "But we couldn't let the day conclude without one more slice of German chocolate cake from Roz's bakery." I chuckled and rose to welcome them. This was my life now, not the idyllic fantasy I had once envisioned with Raymond, but something far superior, something tangible. I was Dorothy Jean Robinson Caldwell, daughter of Ernest Robinson, great-granddaughter of a man who had acquired land when the world declared it impossible. I was an educator, a benefactor, a survivor, and a woman who had transmuted the most devastating betrayal of her life into hope for countless individuals. I was 73 years old, with an estate valued at over under $0 million, and I was enveloped by people who cherished me for my intrinsic self, not for my material wealth, and I was free. Finally, beautifully, completely free. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Please consider subscribing and feel welcome to share your own experiences in the comments section. Your narrative holds value.